Choose wisely. Been in this series for a little while. Do you remember our little friend named Ormy? You remember what happened to Ormy? Proverbs chapter 12, verse 11 says this: those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies have no sense. If you didn't see the video, you can go backwards a couple of weeks on our YouTube channel and watch that. Little Ormy got a whiff of the cookies, and he made sure that he was going to get those cookies, whatever it took. And the end result of chasing fantasies like that will often end like this. It's the wisdom of God. It's God coming to us and saying, I built this world. I know how it goes. I know how it ought to go for you. Go my way and things will end differently. Go your own way and, well, just see what you get. His desire is to bless us. His desire is to give us the life that he longs for us to have, and it is often a different way than what we thought. I read Proverbs chapter 12, verse 11. There's a doppelganger text in Proverbs that is almost exactly like 12:11. It is Proverbs 28:19. It says this: for those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies will have their fill of poverty. We've used this proverb as a jumping off place. We've used it as a jumping off place for investing in what is given that promises fruit to come. We had a board up here a few weeks ago, and we had several different conversations. Y'all threw different ideas of things that we can invest in that's God-given to us, that if we put that effort, there will be fruit. And the last couple of weeks, one of those things that we've been given to invest in is our marriages. Today, I want to deal more literally with this text. What if we deal with investing in our land that we've been given? Like the work that has been given to our hands. What does that mean? What is the difference between chasing fantasies in our work, in our life of occupation, versus working the land that God's given? I want to present to you that it's a heart issue. That the only difference between those two things are the position of your heart and your pursuit as a result. Let me walk you through some potential heart issues with our work. And let's just kind of see how this goes. The first one, you ever had a success fantasy from your work? I remember when I was early in youth ministry, Kristen and I would lay in bed and we would talk shop. In some of those conversations early on, I had this fantasy of the ladder that I would climb in ministry, right? Like I was 20-something and I was just going to go get it. And I experienced a small bit of what chasing those kinds of fantasies look like. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 23 says this: all hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. It's a question in our work, are we going to invest, or are we just going to dream? How about this one? Laziness. It's the idea of not being invested in the job that you've been given. This drives me crazy with my kids, right? Like we talk about, you're on Team Collard. You've been given a job, go do it. And when they're just dragging themselves around and they don't, like it just, I want to pick them up and throw them across the room. Proverbs 18:9 says, one who is slack in his work is brother to one who destroys. As a people of God who reflect the image of God, how are we seen in what we've been given? How about this one? Envy. Have you ever personally, or have you seen someone who becomes so envious on the job that they will actually sabotage a coworker in order to bring them down or in order for them to get ahead? The wisdom of God is different than that. It says, Proverbs 16:8, better a little with righteousness than much gain with injustice. Guys, when that kind of sabotage happens, what is the end result? Don't they, not always, but don't they usually end up like Ormy with that jar on their head? How about this one? Pride. You ever been given a job and feel like that it's just beneath you? Like, I'm too good for this. Why would they ask me to do this? Couldn't they ask, that's more fitting for that person? Proverbs 21:25 says, the cravings of a sluggard will be the death of him because his hands refuse to work. I never thought I was a prideful person until some people every once in a while kind of pointed me out and said, hey, I think you got a problem. I was in high school. I was a senior and signed up for the work-study program. So I had enough high school hours and I was going to graduate way on time. And so I signed up for the work-study program so I would go to work until about 11:30 and then I was off for the rest of the day my whole senior year. It's awesome. But part of that I had to go get a job and it was supposed to at least fill half of the work week or half of the school day. But the job that I landed was at Safeway Foods. I lived in Colorado. Safeway was like our little generic local HEB. Okay? Somebody knows Safeway. All right, guys. Well, it was the only grocery store in town, and it was a pretty big one. But I couldn't work it until after school and after sports. So I would typically go in at 6 o'clock. And my job was a bagger. I stood there next to the checker. They didn't trust me with the computer. I just grabbed food and threw it in the bags, right? And then hauled it out. And every once in a while, somebody would like it and give me $1. But at the end of the day, I had to close. And typically the way this went was all the other baggers would leave and I was left to close the store. And it took about an hour and a half to close the store. And so I would start the close by dry mopping the entire floor and get about halfway through and then they'd buzz because they needed a checker, or they needed a bagger. So I'd drop my mop, I would run back to the front, I'd bag somebody, take it back to the car, and then I'd find my broom and keep going. And then after I got through dry mopping, then I'd get the buffer. And I ran this big machine up the same aisles to buff out and get ready for the next morning for the clientele to come in. And again, about every 3 or 4 minutes, I'd get buzzed, hey, we need a bagger. And I would stop the machine, run out, go do the thing. And then when I got the floor done, I would have to go to the meat market. And I would get a hose and start spraying down all the blood and all the meat and then mopping the floor. It was awful. I remember one day about 3 months in, I hated my job. I wanted to be done. One of the managers was watching me mop, and I was just, he just looked at me and he said, man, why are you here? I said, what do you mean? I'm working. He said, if you're too good for this job, then just leave. We reflect either the image of God or something else with every breath we take. How about this one? Resentment. Resentment is best described as drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Right? Have you ever been in conflict so much with a coworker that it just permeates the entire environment? Proverbs 11:3 says, the integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. You ever allow the conflict that you're in at work to just kind of briefly sneak out to one of your superiors? Just so they kind of know. And this last one, greed. Greed expressed in work is like twisting things to your advantage, just ever so slightly, so that you can make a little bit more profit. And that profit may not always be monetary. That profit may be advancement. Proverbs 11:1 says, the Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. Work your land rather than chasing fantasies. God has blessed you with something. Work that land. I want to ask you to do something for me. If you have your phones, I want to ask you to go ahead and take them out. If you don't, I want you to do this mentally. Take a mental image picture. I have an app on my phone that links to my bank. If you have one of those, I want you to pull up your app. I'm not asking you to log in. Your neighbor's not going to see your number on your bank account, I promise. I just want you to look at your bank account on your phone. Again, if you don't have it, call it up or call up a picture of your bank in your mind. Take a mental image of it. And while you're looking at that, do you know what's in the account? Do you know how much is there? When was the last time that you looked, and how often do you check it? And as you consider those things, what is it that you work for? Is the number on that line in your account the total end goal? Proverbs chapter 3, starting in verse 13, says this. Keep that image in your mind. Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding. For she is more profitable than silver and yields a better return than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare to her. Long life is in her right hand, and in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. To those who hold fast, they will be blessed. Journey, there's a better way than the list that we just walked through on the screens. It's the way of God. It's the way of wisdom. Don't you wish that you could go out into the world and have a business conversation or business interaction or interact with some kind of organization and not have to worry about being manipulated or taken advantage of or being caught by the fine print? What if the people of God were known differently? What if when someone came into a business organization that you were a part of, or a business deal that you were enacting, simply because of your reputation, they didn't even look at the contract? Because they know who you're going to be. Proverbs 16:3 says this. Commit your work to the Lord, and He will establish your plans. Another way to say this is pledge your work to Him. Declare that it is His, not yours, and your plans will be established. Your stuff that you invest in will be set. Because the way that you deal with it is different. It is God's wisdom that will lead us to a different way. It is us putting into action the truth that we know to guide us. But it's us making a decision that I'm not just going to know this truth, I'm going to live in wisdom with it. I'm going to apply it to my life. We have some signposts around here. 6 markers that help us follow Jesus into the kingdom. This series is built around signpost number 4, pursuit through practices. Our text, our key text for pursuit through practices is James chapter 2, verse 17. And this morning, we're going to participate. I want to invite you guys to read that with me. James 2:17. You ready? I'm going to give you one chance. If you don't, I'm going to make you stand up. I'm going to make you do jumping jacks. All right, here we go. James 2:17. Say it with me. In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. This is what this series is teaching us. That there's a difference between information and knowledge and wisdom. Someone could have all of the knowledge of God and do nothing with it, and by Proverbs, they would be described as a fool. Because their knowledge is not dictating their action, and their action is leaving them like Ormy. Wisdom will lead us to apply it. When we went to apply work your land with our marriages, one of the pieces of the conversation that I brought to you was, let's talk about one issue of investing in our marriages. Let's talk about the amount of time that we give to each other. And I'd like to use that same illustration for us with our work. And just help you begin to wrap your mind around what level of engagement that this is really asking us of. Have you ever considered how your life, your faith, and your work are all blended together? Let me show you an example of my life real quick. Here's a typical Tuesday or Wednesday in my world. I wake up at 6:30 in the morning so that I can get ready to start reading Easy Read with Bryson. We do that for about 30 minutes in the morning, and then most often on a Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm meeting with somebody by 8 o'clock. Do some reading, conversation, discipleship conversation stuff. I'm in the office by 9. We close the office officially at 3, but most of us, our workday kind of continues, often outside of the office with conversations with people. About half the time on Tuesday or Wednesday, I pick up Bryson. The other half the time, my mom will grab him and then get him to me later. On Wednesdays, I get home by 5 o'clock. I breathe and reset. Really, Wednesdays, I'm not breathing and resetting. I'm mopping and spraying down and cleaning toilets because I've got adults coming and like crazy kids, Janita, coming to my house that night. So we spend about an hour getting ready, and then community comes. On a Tuesday, when we're not in community, we're most often with somebody in the evening. And then our goal is 8 o'clock. We usually kind of hit 8:30. Bryson's in his room putting him down, and Kristen and I are trying to reset. Let me tell you what that means by time, okay? If I get the reset, we get people kicked out of the house by 8:30, right? And we get the reset. Here's how what the time breakdown looks like. I get about 5 hours when you count any kind of FaceTime with Bryson or Kristen or with our family a day, which is pretty good. That can fluctuate up or down about 3 hours. If things are going on with people in the evening, we could miss that shutdown time, that reset time in the evenings. Or sometimes the meetings end earlier and I could get some more time back. At work, what that means on those days is that I've got 11 and a half or 12 hours of work those days. Some days are different. And what that also means in combination is I've got about 7 to 7.5 hours of of time to be able to sleep? How about you? What does your schedule look like? How much of your life are you spending at work? I averaged it out. If you include time off, like weekends, when we're not working, if you work a 40-hour work week, you're spending at least 35% of your life in work. If you work a 50-hour work week, you're moving up closer to 45 or 50%. Let me show you what this looks like. Everybody stand up, please. We all represent our life here. Take a look. This is 100% of your world right now. If you have a full-time job, then how much of this world is you investing in that job? Let me show you. You guys, sit down. You guys, sit down. You guys in the back, sit down. Take a look. For your life, your every breath that you take, life, this is how much of your life is dedicated to the work of your land that God has given. Let's look at how that applies to or compares to our home. You guys, down. I didn't tell you to sit down. First 3 rows, down. This is how much time compared to your work that you have with your home. Everybody but Will, sit down. Love you, man. If you have a 30-minute devotional every week and you come to church once a week, this is how much time you've dedicated to God. But is it? Sit down, Will. Everybody give him a hand. I told you last week when I was sharing about sexuality that I was in a men's group in Amarillo. We affectionately called it the Island of the Pirate Monks. Part of that conversation, we talked about this. We talked about how this goes, and we talked about work guy. That is very often different than home guy, not homeboy. That is often very different than church guy. And we invest in church for a moment or invest in our Bible study for a moment, and then we leave that guy there and we take that hat off and we move to work guy, and we go and we become that, and we invest in all of those things, but this guy is still over there, and then we take off that hat when we go home, and all of that stuff's going, and sometimes we sit in our driveway for like 3 hours going, I don't want to go in there right now because work guy's still here, and then we try to figure out how to leave him behind and go in and be home guy for a few moments. And we end up living the magnolia life. We live in the silos. This is language I got from Cameron Simmons. It's living in isolated segments of our world, and honestly, it can create very different identities for us that don't intersect with each other. And this is not the way. This is not the way of wisdom. It's not the way of God. God is not dedicated to a devotional time or a worship service. God is not one of these sections of our seats of our life. Everything is spiritual if we are His. His Spirit lives and moves and breathes in us, and we as followers of Jesus find ourselves as kingdom citizens. If we stand up and look at our entire world, God is the room that we're in. And every breath that we take with Him on the journey with us. Proverbs 3:3-4 says it this way. It says, "Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man." Journey, we are kingdom citizens in the midst of the kingdom of the world. And everywhere we go, everything that we do, we are either participating with God in that world or we're checking out of Him to enter it. When we work our land, rather than chasing fantasies, we are actively inviting Him to influence everything that we do and that we say, every relational interaction that we have. As kingdom citizens, we take Jesus into the world. His Spirit empowering us to reflect Him, especially in this 50% of our life. What if as followers of Jesus, Jesus was showing up radically because we showed up? As educators, as medical workers, nurses, doctors, administrators, as realtors, as counselors, as legal professionals, as service providers, home repair, lawn care, insurance, food industry, as small business owners, as landlords, as banking and mortgage lenders, as ranchers and farmers, as factory workers, and as pastors. We are sent as kingdom warriors to reflect His values and His nature and His wisdom into a world that doesn't know it or practice it. Proverbs 22:29 says this. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to ask for your participation one more time. When I get to the underline, y'all jump in with me. Do you see someone skilled in their work? Read it with me. They will serve before kings. They will not serve before officials of low rank. What this proverb is talking about is if you are skilled, if you invest in your land that you've been given, your skill will be seen and known, and there will be reward for it. You will serve in front of the Most High because you are seen to be skilled. And what I want to tell you as kingdom citizens, that we already serve before the Most High. That our primary work is the work of the kingdom, regardless of what title it is that you put on your occupation. So I want to tell you, whether you're an educator or a medical worker, whether you're a realtor or a service provider, whether you're a lawyer or a pastor, I want to tell you to work your land. Love well at your work. Choose others over yourself. Reflect faithfulness in all that you do, and your reward will be great. It is more valuable than any number in your bank account. As you serve before the King. Proverbs 16:3. Once again, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. I want to leave you with one last challenge and encouragement that will shape your heart with your work, I think, more than anything else. And it comes from Proverbs 3:9-10. It says, honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of your crops. Then your barns will be filled with overflow and your vats will brim over with new wine. And here's the thing. I want to invite you to invest in not only your time and your work, your presence there. Not only commit the work to the Lord, but commit the results of your work to the Lord. If you partner with Him and say, all the work that I do, Lord, it's yours to begin with. And you commit that the very first piece of that is going to go to partner with Him. I'm not talking about tithing to Journey. I'm saying figure out a way to partner with God in the kingdom. If that's with us, awesome. But commit the results of the work of your hands to expand His kingdom, and watch how your heart transitions and transforms in how you view what it is that you do.